All right, welcome back to the Buck Sexton Show. I don't want to dive too deep. We've already done a lot on the Vindman testimony, but this caught my eye because one of the media lines about this has been about how you can't question Lieutenant Colonel Vindman because he served. Now, having seen what many leftists will say about Dan Crenshaw, a wounded veteran who served in the Navy SEALs, having seen the way, as Sean Davis mentioned, that they treated 30 years of service from General Flynn, and then just calling him a traitor because he made a phone call when he was National Security Advisor to a Russian ambassador. Nothing wrong with what he said on that phone call, by the way. Nothing. But they were calling him a traitor. No problem with that whatsoever. Wanted to throw him in prison. That's how much they respected his military service. So we know there's a huge double standard with all this. But I would just note that former Congressman Sean Duffy, whom I know, and I will say he's a very nice guy. He's a very nice guy. But he took a job at CNN as a commentator. Now, I know what that's like. I worked as a CNN commentator for a couple of years, which was great. It was being behind enemy lines without anybody really there knowing. Although they knew I was a little conservative. They initially hired me at CNN as mostly a national security analyst. I was doing I did a lot of terrorism hits. I did hits on terrorism more than anything else, right? Counterterrorism issues because of my time in CIA's CTC, the Counterterrorism Center, as well as the NYPD Intelligence Division working on counterterrorism cases. But, who needs the resume right now? You know what I'm saying? But as soon as I became an outspoken conservative during the 2016 election cycle, and especially once I was willing to support Donald Trump, then all of a sudden they changed their attitude toward me very markedly. Producers, the hosts, I was a bad guy now. I wasn't just some curiosity of a kind of preppy-looking ex-CIA guy that could talk about these things. Now it was something else. And then that brings me to what happens when you're a conservative at CNN. You have to remember, this is your career if you're in the media, right? You're trying to build a brand. You're trying to do things that will help you grow recognition and audience over time. That's what a media career is built on. And CNN will use that to make you say things you don't really want to say. Usually it's mostly to have you back off. You can't really argue with someone the way you'd want to because at CNN they will shut you down. They'll tell you you're banned from the show for a while. So I wish Congressman Duffy talked to me before going to CNN because I would have told him that you're not going to be able to be there and get treated with respect as a conservative. Just get used to that right now. I mean, it is a Trump-destroying organization. That is what it exists to do. And here is Sean Duffy stepping in it a little bit over at CNN, Play 24.
He's an advisor to the president. He is a former Ukrainian. He wants to make sure the taxpayer money goes in military aid to Ukraine.
I'm sorry. Why does it matter? Why does it matter where he was born? I'm sorry, Congressman Duffy. Why does it matter where he was born?
I'm going to explain that to you.
That came up on Fox News. He's an active duty military member, an American who was awarded the Purple Heart.
I'm of Irish descent. I still love the Irish. And he has an affinity probably for his homeland. That's not my point, though, John. My point is that he gives advice to the president. He doesn't set policy. So the president has a lot of advisors who give different opinions and different views, but the president is elected by 60+ million people to actually implement the policy, and that's exactly what he did.
Ooh, that turned into quite a feeding frenzy. A dual loyalty smear is what that became in the media. And look, it was not a wise place for Congressman Duffy to go because the storyline immediately becomes wounded veteran, which is what Lieutenant Colonel Vindman is and did fight for his country. This just turns into a session where they can club Duffy into submission because I think I know what he was trying to say, but he said it poorly, which is that there was a policy difference that Vindman had that manifested itself in some of the reaction to Trump's phone call, but it is not the place of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman to have a policy difference with the president. To bring in the, he's from Ukraine thing was unwise and it was a bad move. But then I just have to note that CNN, if you're in the family at CNN, if you're a liberal at CNN and you say something really stupid, which happens at CNN like every 5 minutes. But if you say something that they can't even begin to defend, they'll usually put you on ice. You know, maybe somebody will, there'll be some public statement from CNN PR about how, we don't approve of what was said, and that person has been disciplined, or they'll be off the air for a week or two. But then they'll bring you back. What they only do if you're a conservative, though, is if you say something dumb on TV, if you say something unwise on TV, then all the different anchors, because you're conservative, so you're disposable. To borrow from Rambo in First Blood Part 2, expendable, I think, is the way that he talked about it, right? You're expendable if you're a conservative over at CNN. And that's why Chris Cuomo, Bro Cuomo, trying to bro out, do his bro stuff. Bro Cuomo over at CNN trashed his colleague, Duffy, in a way that would never happen if Duffy were a Democrat. But as a former Republican congressman, this is what happens at your own Network 25.
Former Congressman Sean Duffy this morning on CNN smeared Vindman as having allegiance to Ukraine and not to the country that Vindman literally fought and bled for, the United States. Quote, I don't know that he's concerned about American policy. Getting Ukraine those weapons to beat back the Russians was and is American policy. It was passed by the House and the Senate and signed into law by the president. According to someone who knows Vindman, this is someone who never complains about his wounds, but he still walks around with some of the shrapnel in his body. This vile dual loyalty smear of an Army colonel comes just days after a different smear of a different decorated war veteran, the smear by President Trump of Ambassador Bill Taylor.
You see, if you disagree with even Bill Taylor, you're a bad person, you're disloyal, and you're trashing veterans. This is one of the favorite liberal things to talk about. Now, Duffy, I'm not saying Duffy didn't mess up. It was a dumb thing to say. But what I am telling you, by the way, that was not Bro Cuomo, obviously. It was wrong on my sheet here. Hey, we're doing a show. Sometimes we get. That was Jake Tapper. And I don't want to get a really mean email telling me I'll never work in this town again. So I want to make sure I get it right. You make any mistake where Tapper's concerned, and you're in a whole bunch. Your career all of a sudden will be threatened. He's a really, really lovely fellow. But Bro Cuomo over at CNN is somebody we'll talk about another time. Jake Tapper was the one who, really went after Duffy. The guy works for CNN. They're not giving him an effort to apologize. They're just trashing him because it's necessary right now. They don't give an opportunity to make it right. And I believe Cuomo also, there were other anchors as well that if from what I saw in the headlines, went after Duffy for this, but Tapper just tore into him. Poor guy. I'm sure Duffy's trying to make money, feed his family. He's trying to, think about some media opportunities. I had drinks with a guy in D.C. He's a really nice dude. And a good guy. And does anyone think he doesn't like the military? This is the part of this that gets me so. Does anyone think he doesn't respect the military? Of course not. Duffy's a patriot. He said he got a little caught up in something. But then they just trash him. Just smash him down. Because he's a Republican. That's the way they play the game over there. So I just want to know, this is how things are done in the media environment that we're currently in. And that's why people ask me, did you ever go back to CNN? Yeah, I would totally go back and work for CNN when Jeff Zucker doesn't run it and the place is no longer crazy. There we go. When it actually tries to be, doesn't even have to be conservative. It just can't be insane. You have to put I have a hard pass on working at crazy CNN. It's always been liberal, but they used to have a little bit more sense of decorum and decency about how they treated conservatives. Now the place has just turned into a cesspool. It's grotesque. But anyway, I feel bad for Duffy just because he's working there right now. I'm sure it'll change at some point. Eventually, people will realize. Maybe the CNN audience will realize that they're just being fed propaganda under the guise of journalism, which is even worse.
The inspiration of leaders who are going to put people first is so important, and that's going to make people vote. Another reason why people are going to vote, because Donald Trump is manipulating the White House and has aligned himself with ISIS and Saudi Arabia.
I have to say that is not true.
But
that is not
let me
true.
say,
I'm
the
just-
most
yeah.
important thing that we can do today is vote for civility, vote for a president who's not going to align himself with the most dangerous foreign nations that are the reason why we had 9/11.
He's almost like a Bond villain who also tells you his whole master plan before he tries to kill you. He just says it out loud. And as you say, this is going to be... He's a recruiting sergeant for ISIS, Chris, in so many ways. Tony mentioned the whole oil argument, which has obviously been a narrative for a long time. He also is someone who is an Islamophobe, which obviously helps groups like ISIS recruit disillusioned, angry young men from across the world, not just from across the Middle East. He's been featured in ISIS recruiting videos, and his Muslim ban has definitely been a recruiting ad for ISIS. So in many ways, he helps, quote unquote, the enemy.
The same week, I just want to note, we just had that. Oh, they're all trashing, Duffy. The same week that the president of the United States presides over the operation to take out Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, you got people going on TV, including that was the first lady. There was the Arizona Democratic Party chairman Rotellini saying Trump is aligned with the Islamic State. Do you think that there'll be any somber monologue over at CNN or MSNBC about how that's such a slander? Trump has aligned himself with ISIS. Yeah, that's right. The president of the United States, this is a Democratic Party official, folks, is an ally of the group that has killed tens of thousands, rapes, mutilates, murders. That's a fair thing to say, right? That's a normal, rational thing to say about. So these people are out of their minds. And then some guy from The Intercept, which is really just doing the bidding of hostile foreign intelligence services all the time by trying to take down different elements of the United States government. This guy from The Intercept called him a recruiting sergeant for ISIS. Now, I know that was a rhetorical flourish, but even still, yeah, Trump, the one who escalated the air campaign, killing more ISIS guys than his predecessor, going after ISIS harder, willing to take the political risk, by the way, that Obama was not, of civilian casualties, of an escalated air campaign that could have gone awry. Trump was willing to deal with that. ISIS gets eradicated. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. And you get people going on TV saying that Trump is an ISIS recruiter. Where, Democratic Party official, media person, is that unfair? If we're supposed to be shocked and appalled at any criticism of Bill Taylor or Vindman, two people who both disagree with the president on Ukraine policy, fine. They're allowed to do that, by the way. I just am allowed to not care. But why is it that calling the commander-in-chief, well, we know they call him a traitor, a liar, a rapist, a crazy person, a moron. I mean, there's nothing that they haven't said about Trump yet that they thought would be damaging. They hold back in no way whatsoever. So, but we are supposed to continue to play the left's game here. If you can't criticize whoever they put forward to be the anti-Trump voice of the moment. You can't criticize. If you criticize them, you're a bad person. I'm talking about criticizing even the ideas. By the way, I have no criticism of Taylor or Vindman as people. I don't know them. I don't criticize their service to the country. I don't criticize their aspirations in their roles or, what they're trying to do day to day. I just disagree with what they've done in this instance. But this is a very dishonest way of shutting down debate and discussion. By saying, if you, in this case, don't like what someone is saying, and that person has done something that's honorable, or they've been a victim of something, or this is how the left argues on gun control. Oh, let's put kids from the school where there was the mass shooting out there to tell the whole country what the Second Amendment really means. And if you disagree with them, you don't care about dead kids. Oh, let's put Greta Thunberg out there. And then if you disagree with Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old who's telling us about how to rearrange trillions of dollars of wealth based on a vastly complicated scientific theory that nobody can really prove. Oh, you're a child basher. I was called a child basher. And I will tell you, I have bashed zero children. I did not bash any kid. That was a lie. There are news stories written about this. Oh, this guy, this right-wing pundit, child basher. Those people are morons. And now we had the same thing with Comey. Who thinks that Comey is beyond reproach now? Nobody. Oh, we were told that, though. as soon as Trump fired him, people were crying in the hallways of the FBI. Oh my gosh, James Comey is not the FBI director anymore. I won't show up to my job. I can't. This is what we were being told. I remember reading the news stories. Meanwhile, every person, as I've told you, that I know who worked with Comey is like, yeah, that guy is a self-righteous, sanctimonious weirdo. Sancti-Comey is not cool. No, Mueller, the same thing. If you didn't like the Mueller investigation, you were spitting on his service in Vietnam as a Marine. That's what was being pushed out there by the allies of this thing. You see, we can never have a fair and open discussion about what is at issue. There's always this effort to silence. There's always this effort to shut down opposing voices by using dishonest, unfair tactics. And that's what we have here once again. And this is now, unfortunately, this is the standard operating procedure for the left. This is not a one-off. It doesn't just happen occasionally. It's not once in a while. They like to put forward somebody who either has a resume that you are not, a resume that is unassailable, or has a victim status that if you challenge them on an issue of policy or an issue of fact, you are negating their victim status, and therefore you're a bad person. You're victimizing them all over again. You're a bad person. Media never holds itself to account for this. And it's yet another reason why one of my favorite things about President Trump is that he just doesn't cave on this stuff. He doesn't bend the knee. He doesn't say, oh, yeah, you're right. I can't say anything about this person. I'm not allowed to criticize this person. No. Trump will continue his critiques. He'll continue fighting back against those who are, first of all, in many cases attacking him personally, but even if they're not attacking him personally, they're opposing his policies. We all know what it's like to have Republican leadership that just takes it. Just takes it. Oh yeah, I don't want to be nasty in response, so I'm just going to be quiet about this. And I think that one of the promises of the Trump administration, an implicit promise of the Trump administration, is that leadership on the right would no longer sit around and say, yeah, sure, whatever you guys want to do to us, we'll just accept that as the new status quo, or as the continuation, rather, of the status quo. Saying that that's not how things should go. It's not how things would go. This Vindman thing, by the way, will be dropped this week, because next week there'll be another witness. And then week after that, another witness. And then week after that, another witness. They're really just hoping to make us say, fine, impeach him. Just make this stop. Anything to make this stop. It's just so boring. It's so worthless. But how do we get around it? Unfortunately, the only way to get around it is to get through it, to fight through it. Trump knows that. I'm just not always sure that many conservatives do these days. I start to worry about where the right really is on all of this. What makes a good manager? What makes a good boss? The number one reason, at least when I used to pay attention to these things, but I used to always see this, the number one reason that people leave their job is that they're, across all industries, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, the number one reason people say, you know what, I just can't do this anymore, is they cannot stand their first line manager, essentially the boss that is responsible for them. Not the CEO boss, right? The boss that their supervisor, their immediate supervisor. And it makes sense. I remember I worked once in government, and there was someone who thought that the best way to get us to do things was to just walk around the office and I mean physically, literally poke people from behind, like poke them in the back of the shoulder, say, hey, what are you doing? Just all constantly. It was the most anxiety-producing thing you could imagine in an office environment. I mean, it was, hey, what are you doing? And you look at the person and say, my job? I think I'm working on a proposal or a project or something. Oh, it turns out that people are starting to look at this more because management culture, I think, does need quite a bit of a look, especially in large organizations where it's very hierarchical. The Wall Street Journal had a great piece on this today. Bosses, get out of the way. And The main thing is how many bosses don't understand that what they are doing is at best meaningless and perhaps counterproductive, but they think they're doing a great job. How many of you know exactly what I'm talking about? I can tell you that one of the bosses that I have had in media at a previous company that I no longer work for really thought that just holding meetings was in and of itself a worthwhile endeavor. That if you're serious about what you're doing, you got to hold a meeting. Even if we all sat there and looked at each other and thought, what is going on here? Why are we having this meeting? And it turns out that the reason this is getting people to pay more attention, the reason people are paying more attention to this is that they're doing a lot of research that finds out that people are productive when the boss just leaves them alone. Because your work product is what will be judged, right? Your ability to do the job is what matters. But bosses that hover. I even learned a new term from this piece today, and I just love it. I mean, because I've had good passes. I like to go bass fishing. No, I've had good bosses, and I've had terrible bosses. And I can tell you that it does make a real difference. Management by walking around. I had never heard that term before, but it's, those of you who've been in an office environment know that the boss who thinks that they just got to just be around, got to hover, got to just make people anxious, that's a contribution. Oh, they're helping people. They're there in case there's a question, but also they're making sure that work is getting done. I can assure you that most of us figure out that the MBWA situation, management by walking around, the best way to deal with it is just to always make sure that you have one screen open that's work and one screen open that is your Amazon shopping list. And just pay attention to where that boss is. No one's like, oh, the boss is walking around. Better actually do my job now that I wasn't doing before. If anything, I think people resent it. The term that we used to use when I was in government all the time, and it really does convey the irritation from the whole thing, was micromanagement. Micro, just getting into the, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you doing? Let's have a meeting. Let's have another meeting. Horrible stuff. In fact, one of the reasons I think I left government work, there are several of them, but one of the reasons was the only way to really rise was to be in charge of other people and their work product, to be a manager. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in charge of what I was doing, judged by my ability to produce, to make things. And now here I am in the media business as a content person, which is what I wanted to do. But I wanted to be a make stuff guy, not a make sure other people are making stuff guy. Now, there is such a thing as fantastic leadership and management and corporate culture. I get that. There's a reason really good CEOs make a lot of money. There's a reason that people almost worship, Steve Jobs, even though from what I understand, he wasn't a particularly nice guy a lot of the time. But bosses, the old culture of the boss that walks around and holds meetings, bosses are a problem. Oh, but management by walking around. Here's what it says. Even leaders who use the much ballyhooed management practice of walking around, who devote big chunks of time to observing frontline work and asking employees to identify problems and solutions, may do more harm than good. This guy who wrote this piece writes about, my Stanford colleague Catherine Segovia and I have recruited our students to help new managers get out of their employees' way. We arrange for student teams to attend meetings led by each boss and record the percentage of time that each leader talked, as well as counting the number of statements each leader made versus the number of questions that he or she asked. One manager, for example, was surprised to learn that he talked almost the entire time during a 15-minute meeting and asked only one question, and that his team viewed this standing meeting as a complete waste of time. This information, along with some coaching from our students, helped this new boss learn and ask more questions his people appreciated. A lot of unnecessary meetings going on in American corporate culture. A lot of focus on process over outcomes. Outcomes are what matters, right? Outcomes is what brings dollars in, what sends dollars out. Outcome is what the focus should always be in a corporate environment. And I just think that I wish that there had been better management instruction, particularly, I'll be, the most of the government managers I dealt with were almost buffoonish in their incompetence. Most of them, not all of them. But I remember I worked in the federal government as well as local government here in New York City. For the NYPD, my NYPD second line manager was a pretty good guy. My first line manager was a nightmare. A micromanaging, poke you in the shoulder. What are you doing? Why isn't this finished? Where is this thing? Nightmare. And I'm somebody who just, as a general, I'm just not a bend the knee kind of guy. I just don't like it when somebody is being unreasonable and trying to make my life more difficult than it has to be. And so I tend to be the kind of person who, in that corporate environment, would then find ways to do things my way and extend a particular digit of my left or right hand in the general direction of management. I was not a good person at dealing with that micromanaging culture. And that then brings me to another part of this piece, the Wall Street Journal, which I just think is great. Let me tell you who the authors were, just to give them credit for this. Bosses, get out of your employees' way is the piece. Robert Sutton is the one who wrote it. He writes about flexing the hierarchy. Here's another one. Another hallmark of skilled leaders is that they understand that their people and work they do so well that they are masters of flexing the hierarchy to fit the situation. Lyndred Greer, a management professor at the University of Michigan, finds that the best leaders don't hesitate to exert top-down control when quick decisions and immediate actions are essential, and they switch gears and flatten hierarchy when they need to solicit everyone's opinion, develop employee buy-in, and make it safe to discuss uncomfortable truths, criticize others, and generate half-baked and controversial solutions. I can tell you that I dealt with one of the more senior managers I dealt with down in D.C. working on the Hill TV project had a habit, and there were several of them, so I'm not naming names here, but had a habit of, we're just going to do it because I say we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way because I say we're going to do it this way. And his approach was such that even on minor issues where it was really a judgment call that it wasn't important and there's no right answer, but to do the because I say so routine when you're not dealing with a toddler, when you're in an office of adults, in fact, in this case, adults who kind of knew a lot more than this person about what was going on, that does not do good things for outcomes or for morale, which is another part of this too. Right? Management is about what the end product is of whatever the company is, whatever the service is they're providing, of course, but it's also about how do people feel in that office environment. And I've seen it where esprit de corps is high, and when esprit de corps is high, people don't have to stay. They don't have to be told to stay late. They don't have to be told to get things done on time or to show up on time. Or they do it because they're proud of what's going on. I mean, I'll tell you this: in my Iraq office at the CIA, we had esprit de corps in that office, man. I mean, we were focused. We had good management. People cared about what they were doing. There was a really healthy sense of competition for who was doing the most to help on the policy side, on the supporting the warfighter side, whatever it may be. And that just reflected all the way down. We wore, we dressed up in the sense we wore suits, even though we didn't have to, because we wore suits because we were a war office, and damn it was serious stuff. And that was just the culture of that office. Like I said, I went to the NYPD. It was a very different culture because I was dealing on the civilian side there. But flexing the hierarchy is also so important. Don't do the because I said so unless the lack of an immediate decision is going to have real ramifications. Unless the lack of an immediate immediate change in direction for the company is going to, allow people to be heard, and don't just shut things down or talk over them because you can. Another big mistake that I think a lot of managers run into is they just get lazy with it. Like, all right, like we're done when I say we're done. I don't care what other people say. Managing people is one of the most important skills you're going to have in any work environment. And really, life is all about managing people. Your personal life, your professional life. How do you deal with other human beings? Do you bring out better things in them? Do they feel comfortable around you? Do they trust you? or not. It's true of managers, true of family members, true of everybody. How are you dealing with those around you? So don't do management by walking around. Don't just sort of, poke people in the shoulder and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Drives them crazy. Drove me crazy. Be a good boss.
We need the money, and to get the money in, we need to stop. Because Jonathan's got a vision, which I agree with, but in order to pay for that, we need the money, and to get the money in, we need to stop
1%
Brexit.
or 2% of GDP isn't going to make a difference either. We've got to be
Let
given
Maria
much
speak.
bigger
Let
terms.
Maria speak. Stop
Absolutely,
mansplaining.
climate change is
Well, if you are describing Jeremy Corbyn as business as usual, then you haven't been reading the newspapers or watching the television. He was green before the Greens existed. He rode a bike. He's got an allotment. He will do both. He will bring social justice and a green revolution. So have the vision on the Greens, but vote Labour if you really want it to happen.
It's got to be more than allotment, and let's just look at the facts. In 2017,
John, could
there
you
was
stop
40.
mansplaining? This is the
I'm not
first day
talking
of
to
the
you. I'm
election,
talking to Adam.
and Adam has asked
if I
me
could-
to respond. And if you continue to mansplain, I'll have to complain.
Please don't resort
Now,
to sexism when we're trying to have a
well,
conversation
could
about
you
the facts.
stop mansplaining? I've asked you 3 times.
Oh, could you stop mansplaining, please? Could you stop the mansplaining? Poor guys. That was during a TV interview. I don't even care what. They're talking about Brexit, I think, or Corbyn, or who cares? British politics, whatever. It's not something I really care very much about. I don't care at all, really. I care only as much as I need to care so that I can inform you all with the facts, right? But she's like, stop mansplaining. What you do? What are you mansplaining again for? What's that all about? I wanted to play it for one just because I thought it was so funny. This reminds me of when the former governor of Michigan, Granholm, looked at me on the Bill Maher show and went, kids in cages, out of nowhere. Like, lady, I didn't put any kids in cages. Like, what are you even, we're not even talking about that. Just like mic drop, kids in cages. Here we had another version of just say some stupid slogan to somebody you're having a political debate with, and then hope that no one calls you out on it. Stop your mansplaining. I want to know, is it mansplaining just for a man to try to explain something now? And also, it's worth noting that the Brits have a similar language now about some of these political issues, like social justice. Jeremy Corbyn was green before there was green. He was riding his bicycle, making sure that the CO2 that was, coming out there, it's not like it's not like the methane coming out of cow bums. You know what I mean? They have the same stuff going on over there that we do. You've got to stop the cow bum farts. You've got to stop it. It's important. It's got to save the planet. All of a sudden, I've started to switch over into Aldous Snow accent from, what's that? Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He's great. It's like, I was going to listen to your tape, but I decided to just go on living my life. He's the best part of that movie in many ways. I did not like Get Him to the Greek at all, though the following movie I did not think that was good. You like Get Him? I don't even know if we're going to allow you to weigh in anymore on anything. You like that movie?
Yeah, I love Get Him to the Greek.
Oh, my God.
It was fantastic. I love Jonah Hill.
I don't even know what to say now.
A lot of people
agree with that. Did you at least like
that.
Forgetting Sarah
Of
Marshall?
Course.
Okay. Well, there we can agree on that. It's a very good movie. But I just want to know, why is producer Mark mansplaining? He's just sitting there mansplaining away. And I'm like, but I'm trying to do a radio show here, producer Mark. Why can't you stop mansplaining?
I have to mansplain to you that Get Him to the Greek was a good movie.
Apparently. I'm wondering who the audience is with on this one. Light it up in those comments. Let us know. Get Him to the Greek. I thought it was depressing. It's like sad at the end. Doesn't he have like cheats on his wife or something? It's bad.
It mirrored real life with
They got
Russell
married.
Brand
Wait,
and
what?
Katy Perry.
Married in real life?
They were.
Oh, they will.
Yeah.
No, but I meant Jonah Hill. Isn't he like cheating on his wife or something? In the thing?
I'm not sure.
I forget now. Oh, spoilers. I am sorry about the Joker spoiler that. I didn't know. Somebody wrote it in. I didn't know any better. So we had a little bit of a Joker spoiler going on there. It is what it is. But anyway, mansplaining is a thing now. Manspreading, which I try to avoid doing on the subway. Are you familiar with manspreading?
You sit down on the subway?
Yeah, of course.
No, I never do.
You don't sit on the
No.
subway? What are you, like a germaphobe
Yes.
or something? Yeah. But I don't think the cold virus is going to get through your pants into your thighs.
I'm also only on the subway for like 4 stops, so.
You're one of those, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I have kind of a long subway ride every day.
Oh yeah, 10 whole minutes. Your whole commute is 10 minutes. Boo hoo.
Look at this. I got to, I'm a man of the people. I ride the subway. What can I tell you?
Your commute is 10 minutes, yet you still show up late.
I always tell producer Mark, the show begins when the host arrives. He's like, no, technically we have studio time. I don't know. I don't know about this studio time thing that we're supposed to be discussing. But yes, there are clocks and there is a time we have to do the show. But I think the show happens when Buck starts talking to the team.